Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holt's back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. Hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Sean, back again from Ridge Wallet. Welcome.
Super nice to be back. I think the podcast I did with you is my most quoted podcast. I still meet people at events and they're like, dude, I heard you and Eric talking and it was fantastic. And that was like 2 years ago. So hopefully we can top it this time.
Well, I think we will. I think, like, when I think back of all the people I talk with, Sean, you are probably one of the most transparent, open, confident, because you're a badass, clearly a badass. And I feel like the next 30 minutes, for anyone who's never listened to Sean before, your mind is about to be blown. I shouldn't like set the expectations too high, but I know like you friggin' deliver. It just, your abilities absolutely blow my mind.
Well, that's you. You're being entirely too kind. I barely work. If you ask my team, I barely work. I'm mostly a conspiracy theorist.
Now, here we go. If he barely works, that just like doubly shows how effective this man is. He can like work an hour a day and then have the impact that you have. Yeah, man, I'm excited for this. Let's get right into it, man. It's mid 2022. Is the world on fire?
Yeah. I wrote a thing where I said 6/30/2022 is the end of the growth decade. So to unpack that, that's in about a week from now from recording this, but it's the end of Q2, and I think it's going to signal. I think when we get Q2 results from public companies, we're going to see that we're in a recession. A lot of people are down year over year. That specifically since inflation's gone really crazy and consumer spending has been hurt by gas prices, whatever else, that like just there's less disposable income to buy stuff from Nike or Walmart or Target or whatever. And I think that's going to really cement the fact that we're in a recession. And the reason why I'm saying that the growth decade is that hasn't happened in 10 years. So I'm 28. My entire professional career has been in a bull market, and we're for sure entering into a bear market that's going to last 12 to 18 months. And that might sound scary or whatever, but it's just the natural cycle of doing business. This has to happen. We're long overdue. And there's a lot of economic reasons at the federal level and the global level of why it has to happen right now. Yeah, I don't know if we want to get down.
We'll avoid that. We'll avoid that rabbit hole because I used to be a banker, man, so I know all about this. I'm not a big fan of the Federal Reserve.
I don't think most people understand that most of their success and most of their failure is dictated at a government level. You know what I mean? 10 years of quantitative easing has not made any fucking sense. So now we're going to have 5 years of extreme quantitative tightening.
Well, what I wanted to really, again, pick your brain about is after the last time we talked, I was blown away by your ability to get sponsored content produced by creators for like $3 CPM, right? $3 to $6 is what you were paying back in the day.
Yeah, 3 to 7 in 2020 was the target.
Yeah, and I got nowhere near that. I got nowhere near that. And I'm like, man, we suck at negotiating, and this is just not one of our core competencies, and we're going back to where we're going. Is that no longer feasible? Do you feel like the rates have gone up, or is that still a target for you?
So we were just at VidCon. I was working the booth at VidCon 5 days ago, and there was two main conversations that came up. The first is that rates have probably 4x'd across the board from 2020 till 2022, specifically because of crypto and fintech and VC-backed SaaS companies entering the space, right? Crypto.com or public.com or, Webull, any of these people coming in and sponsoring, they have unlimited budgets. Their CAC targets are probably $1,000. You know what I mean? So they'll really flood the space with money. And there's nowhere more polluted with that than Twitch, right? Drake, the popular performing artist live streams gambling on Twitch with stake.com, right? We're talking the guy who has number one albums or whatever is sponsored by a crypto gambling site, and he spends hours a week, a month gambling on there with a deal that's reportedly worth $60 million. So it's definitely, they drove the rates up. But then the second conversation that came up all the time is, are you guys continuing to spend? Because while rates in the second half of 2020 and all of 2021 and the first quarter of 2022 were insane for influencers, in the second half of 2022, everyone stopped spending. All of those companies we talked about, specifically the crypto companies, have essentially closed their wallet. And I talked to a lot of very popular YouTubers and influencers who have tens of millions of subs, and they're like, yeah, people are dropping out and it's costing me millions of dollars a month. So they're like, will Ridge step in and sponsor? So anyway, that's what we're seeing in the market. Rates totally got up. The second half of 2021, we were paying probably double what we typically would like to pay. We still have a lot of deals that make sense for us, but I don't know what the future is going to look like. Are those rates going to stay, or is there actually going to be a pullback? And if you're a small brand thinking about getting into the space right now, I don't know if it's a good time or a bad time. So hard for me to say. That's really predicting the future.
Yes. So rates you're thinking are around what, 12 to 20 bucks CPM is what your target is, or is that twice what you want to pay?
So that's probably like a realistic target of what we're seeing for most people, but it depends on niche and everything. I mean, the rate increases have been disproportionate, right? Like if you're looking for a female YouTuber, those rates now are starting at $80 CPMs is what I'm seeing.
Shut up.
Yeah.
So like if you get an offer for $80 CPM, do you just like X and go on to the next person?
Oh, look, I mean, we're super transparent about this type of stuff. It's like, we'll tell them like, hey, look, this is what we're trying to pay. We worked with a lot of deals. I understand this. It's so far away. It doesn't make any sense, but we're here if you ever want to do a deal, right? Trying to be as friendly as possible without being offensive. And I think most brands are scared of offending people or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to hurt somebody with influence, like it's going to backlash them. And like, I'm sure influencers have been pissed off at us about like the deals we're sending. I'm sure there's been tweets that like, oh, we're sending offensive offers. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're paying more than YouTube AdSense is paying.
Yeah.
It's like, if you just put your stuff on YouTube, like everyone complains about that. I mean, everyone wants as much money as possible all the time, right? Like I want as much money as possible. You want as much money as possible. And views haven't really been good. The other thing to talk about is TikTok really loves new people coming onto the platform. So they reward new accounts with views, right? That's why if your first 10 TikToks you post, one of them will get 100,000 views or 1 million views. You'll be like, this platform's awesome. Look, I'm making such good stuff. It's a disproportionate dopamine hit to get you addicted to the app, right? It's kind of like how drug dealers give you your first hit for free, right? So what we've seen is that like a lot of people who've been on the platform for a long time with big followings or whatever, their views have dropped off significantly. And then on the YouTube side of it, because content is moving more and more targeted, right? And it's a very saturated pool of who's making content. There's less random 1 million view videos, 10 million view videos. Like that used to be the common part of YouTube, is that like we were all basically watching the same stuff. But the algorithm, because of TikTok, has shifted way more towards hyper personalization, where if I open my YouTube home screen, I'll get 12, 15, 20 videos recommended to me that have like 2,000 views each. They're like, this is exactly what you want to watch, Sean. This is like the weirdest, nichest content that appeals to you personally. So just the algorithm is shifting way more towards hyper personalization. And that's good for small creators able to build like really dedicated followings, right? Like in the gaming space or whatever. But it's way harder to have those like viral hits that used to drive views. So it's a really fucking hard time to be a creator. And they're getting pushed from every single way because they're realizing the problem of building an audience on a platform you don't control, right? Like I sign up for Beard Brand emails. If people listening are not doing that, they should. But a couple times a week, you guys are sending like a very personalized, dedicated, interesting thing to read. And YouTube can't stop that. You know what I mean? Or TikTok can't stop that. You get to reach those people every single time. So that's the whole push towards owning your platform or whatever. You see more people doing newsletters is because you're building your castle in someone else's land when you launch a channel.
I feel like since the last time we recorded the episode, you guys have nearly doubled in size. And during this time period, we had iOS 14, which neutered a lot of Facebook's ability to target people. Were you able to, or obviously the answer is yes, How did you guys work around those limitations and build a funnel that continued to work despite the technical challenges?
Yeah. So Facebook. So let's talk about what broke and what didn't break, right? People still spent time on the app and people still wanted to buy stuff. So that didn't break, right? Like people are still on Instagram, people still go on Facebook, people are still in WhatsApp or whatever, right? And they still are buying things, right? So like the pool of people and where they're spending time and their money didn't go away. What really broke was understanding the exact person at the exact time who wanted to make your exact purchase, right? So it really hurt niche brands. If you were a vegan dog food company, you are out of business. You know what I mean? Because like you can't find vegans and people with dogs and people who want to give their dogs. It's like that's too many abstracted layers of data that Facebook used to be pretty good at guessing, but totally was lost, right? But I think we benefited because we're more of a universal product. So I think the broader you are, the easier time you had, right? Like, we're not trying to sell anything that revolutionary, right? It's like a cool, nice wallet, right? And that's like, so I think wallets, shoes, like, like I think we saw like shapewear and like loungewear and all those type of things had like a pretty good year because they're just like, can I show this to women? Right. And like, oh yeah, a lot of women want to buy my shapewear. Awesome. So like, it's still new, like, gender, it's still new, like approximate, like, net income or age, whatever. But like those unique identifiers that Facebook really pioneered was totally obliterated. So, so I think we benefited from that. And then the second thing is, we have always had some sort of attribution solution, right? So like, I know you guys do post-purchase surveys. We use post-purchase surveys. And if you are getting started in this space and you don't have that as a base layer, just start doing that immediately. I was talking to somebody at dinner last night who's like, they're scared to like bug their customers post-purchase. And it's like, they've already bought from you. It's not bugging them. They're already there on the website and people want to offer that information. We have like a 30% opt-in rate to our post-purchase survey. Like they want to tell you how they found out about you. So I think that's the easiest and the most honest attribution solution you can have, right? We've also, we had a thing called North Beam set up since like 2018, right? So like my CMO Connor, who's sitting next to me, is a super marketing nerd. So he was like really into it before it was a thing. You know what I mean? He was like helping them design their product or whatever. So when Facebook broke in 2021, like we were able to actually accelerate our spend because like everyone else was like, oh, what's going on? And we weren't even looking inside a business manager, right? Like we had different signals to pull from. And I'm a big advocate if you don't want to invest money into it, post-purchase surveys or just looking at last click, right? Like the data is still there. If you have Google Analytics, what was your last ROAS from Facebook, right? Was it 0.2? Okay, post iOS, was it 0.2 still? Then just keep spending, right? So we were able to really double down on that and just spend all the way through it. And then the last piece, and sorry, I'm a talker, there's a lot of stuff we haven't done well as a business. Like, and people should admit that. We never did creative well. Like from 2013 till 2020, we were just not that good at creative. And so by doubling down on creative, we've been able to have a new lever to boost the business, right? So we made a bunch of hires and we dedicate a lot of time and resources to just like cranking out 100 ads a week or whatever to test. So like different openings, just making really modular content, different ideas and concepts, just getting really crazy with it. Because what we've seen now is that like the best indicator of success is just rapid content testing on a platform like TikTok or even Facebook now. Content just doesn't last that long with that much spend. So just being able to just pump out a ton has just been able to keep results, pretty flat, even as CPMs go up and targeting gets worse.
So let me break that down a little bit more because I think there's some interesting nuggets in there. How big is your team to be able to crank out 100 pieces of content a week? I assume it's, what is that, like 10 core ideas and then 10 versions of those 10 is the strategy?
Yeah. So we have my CMO Connor, who runs the whole ship. He has people who run paid social for us. So we have 2 internal people, and then we have some outside consultants. So like we don't really use the agency route, but like it is helpful to have somebody who works on 4 or 5 big accounts to be like, hey, this is a good idea. This is a good concept, right? And so they're getting data from the platform, right? So what's working inside of Facebook or TikTok or whatever, right? And they're also seeing ideas of what could work, right? And then they're putting together like request lists, right? And then I have someone who's in charge of performance creative who gets all those request lists, right? And then they're working with either, creative agencies or influencers with the whole influencer team or, like my wife shoots a lot of our content, or just like a bunch of these like different like, UGC style creators, and we're giving them scripts or giving them ideas or whatever and having them shoot on a weekly basis, right? So paid media team gives my performance creative person a lot of ideas. That person manages a bunch of vendors to get the creative back in to like the system. And then we have an in-house editor who's just cranking out concepts, right? Or like, like the raw footage comes back, he's making different slices or whatever. And then they're feeding that back to the paid social team and they're testing, they're iterating off of that. So, it takes 4 or 5 in-house hires, probably takes like 1 or 2 consultants, freelancers, whatever. And then it takes like a team of like 10 or 20 different creators to actually shoot the stuff and give us stuff we can iterate on.
Yeah. And of course, you don't build that overnight. That happens through building relationships and adding talent over time.
Yeah. So I have 2 points. The first point is, why have we seen a resurgence of drop shipping from TikTok? And it's because if you're a 19-year-old with nothing to do, you can just sit in your house and shoot content all day and try to get like some sales or whatever, right? Because if content's so important, it just takes man hours of shooting and testing and learning, right? And a lot of us are just fat and lazy off of the Facebook days where you could just run a static image for 5 years and print money. So that's why like dropshippers actually have had like a comeback, because they're able to actually just put the hours in to get that done. And the second thing is, I understand what I'm saying is really hard and really expensive. That's why like really the iOS privacy breakdown, whatever, has disproportionately hurt smaller businesses and smaller teams. Because like if you're doing 2 or 4 or 5 or even $10 million a year, and I'm telling you have to hire 6 people to shoot a bunch of content. I mean, before I run an ad every month, my content team costs me 100,000, 200,000, something crazy. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's before I spent $1 on paid, right? So it's really disproportionately hurt the smallest of the vendors.
Going back to attribution, what is your North Star metric that you guys are looking for when you know an ad's working? And if you're open to it, like what is your AOV and kind of like your target return on ad spend?
Yeah. So we have like a break even goal, right? So like if we get a 1.4x MER, so if I spend $1 and I make $1.40 across the entire business, I know that I've broken even. Like that pays for COGS. It pays for shipping, and it's like, it'll probably help us keep the lights on, right? Which is extremely low to the ground. That gives very little breathing room. There's no EBITDA there, right? That's like, if we needed to scale this business up, that's what we could do it at break even. And then if we are hitting a 3x MER, we're printing money, right? So like somewhere between those two, and we go back and forth depending on the season and the goals and whatever else, right? Like if we're ramping into a big holiday period, it's like, all right, let's get pretty low to the ground. But if we're in like just a running month, it's like, can we get to 3? Can we get to 3.2? Right. And I'm sure Honest knows, but just MER is just like total revenue divided by total money spent on marketing.
Yeah.
So, that works for our business because we're a high margin, high AOV product, right? AOV over $100. And our North Star to see if an ad is performing is looking at like a 1 day click return on ad spend for that ad, right? So if I can spend $100 on this ad and I drive a sale within that 24-hour period off of that exact click, we know that is probably driving 2 or 3 additional sales, right? Because I'm not looking at view data. I'm not looking at, what if somebody like opened up a new browser or in Google Docs, it's just like off of that exact click within 24 hours, somebody make a sale. So, I mean, if we're getting like a 0.6, 0.7 off of that, we know that there's additional money being captured other places, like on Amazon or whatever else. So that's kind of like what we look for to see if an ad is above or below the average in the cohort.
So just a little bit, to a certain degree, just having faith in the platform. And
yeah. I mean, faith is a good way to describe the past couple of years. You got to have a lot of faith.
Yeah. I want to talk about that AOV because I feel like when you guys launched, the wallet was like $50, right?
Yeah.
How have you been able to drive that AOV up over time?
We've charged more. I recommend people charge more. I think that's the scariest thing for brands or businesses to hear. I was talking to a guy last night with a t-shirt company, and it's alpaca, it's $65, it's like long sleeve, it's like ethically made in Peru, it's like all these type of things. And I was just like, why do you want to compete at $65? He's like, yeah, we think that's like our avatar customer like sees that as like a good value. And I'm like, do you know in Nordstrom's, they will not carry you at $65. It's like, because they have an established cohort of brands at $65. Like you're competing with Ralph Lauren or whatever else, right? I'm like, you should be $165 because that's what James Purse is. I'm like, you should, like, your business works a lot easier if you're James Purse than if you're, competing for shelf space at a lower price point. There's more margin to work with. I think you get a different customer with a higher level of perception. You can offer better customer service, all these different type of things, right? Walmart and LVMH have the exact same market cap. Would you rather be LVMH and sell $14,000 bags, or would you rather be Walmart and have 2.5 million employees? It's like, which one sounds easier? So yeah, we can talk about like our thought process and increasing the prices and making the product better and offering better customer service and all this type of stuff to get the AOV up. But it only comes down to just charging more. That's like the first step.
Yeah. So you made more expensive, better, higher quality products. And was there any kind of like bundling or new products because when we talked last time, you were coming out with bags or belts or something. Is wallet still, 80, 90% of your business?
Yeah, so traditionally, like the wallet was like 90% of the business, and we're getting that down over time. I think next year, I would guess wallets are less than 60% of our overall revenue. That's the other big advantage is last time we talked, I think I said we're the largest wallet company, right? And what's changed in the past couple of years is I no longer want to be the largest wallet company, right? Like if the ceiling on wallet companies is me, I'd really dream a little bigger about that. So like really expanding into other accessories, really trying to be this like lifestyle brand idea, right? Because I think that's just an easier path when you have a low repeat product like us, right? It's like the original subscription was just making good stuff, right? If you look at like, Ralph Lauren or J. Crew throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s or whatever, like they have LTVs of customers that are in the thousands, right? And it's because they make good stuff every quarter, right? You could argue that's changed in recent times, but if you look at like Buck Mason or Cuts or whatever, it's just like they're continually to make good new stuff that people want to buy because people like buying things. So anyway, yeah, we're still a very large wallet company. We still sell a ton of wallets, but I'd much rather be the largest accessory brand, the largest, lifestyle brand or whatever else. So that's what we're working on.
How do you have patience for, launching a bag that does a fraction of what a wallet launch will do, and then staying committed to that when you can just see how easy it is to roll out a new wallet?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have that problem because I get excited by everything new. So like, the company is very much other people trying to keep me tempered, right? 'Cause if it was up to me, we'd be selling socks and underwear and Ferraris, like whatever cool thing I think we could sell. Like that'd be like, yeah, we got to do that. That's awesome. So the rest of the team really make sure I stay focused on whatever the next launch is. And look, we've launched some other products that have been just like massive successes, right? Like we launched the best-selling key solution on earth. So like, Orbit Key, Key Smart, Key Bar, they really made a category. They're really awesome, right? We launched our version of that. We do more than probably all of them together every single month. So I really like, what we've been able to figure out is like, if we can get into a category and really do it special and unique, we have it on it to people who've asked to buy more stuff from us. So that keeps me pretty excited.
How do you make a product that's better than everybody else? First of all, are you doing like market research on, search volume or terms to see if the market is large enough for you guys? Or do you just say, this is something cool, I want to do it? And if so, who's that person who's doing it?
Yeah, man, I wish we did more market research. I don't think we do that especially well to be like, yeah, this is how we're launching into the space or whatever. No, we basically look out there. We see like what's a natural extension of our brand that was really hard to do for a really long time. We find stuff we like. We find stuff we think is cool. We find small people making cool things and we think about what the Ridge version of that would look like. And then we kind of try to bring that to life. And so I run the business, the CEO, Connor's my CMO. The two original founders of Ridge are just product people. So like their whole life is just thinking about like small tweaks to different things, right? And when you meet product people, if you are a product person, you hand them any widget and they immediately start being like, okay, how is this made? You know what I mean? They're very much those type of guys. So, I think the question is, how do you bring those things to life? And it's super fucking hard. That's what I'll say is like, we should have did a key thing 5 years ago, but like we could never figure out the exact angle we wanted to bring to it. Right. And then going back to like what Ridge is as a company for a long time, like, oh no, we're a wallet company or we're accessories company or whatever. I firmly believe we're a material company. And that's like a super nebulous, sounds like a bullshit thing to say, but I think we're like the largest carbon fiber supplier in North America. You know what I mean? Like if you just look at like revenue made off of carbon fiber, and we apply it to wallets, right? But we're also applying it to pens and other things. And so we just think about like, okay, what's something we could make out of carbon fiber or titanium or whatever else? And our audience seems to really want to buy that from us. So we got extremely lucky there.
When is Yeti going to say that they're the cooler company that's like rich? What's your Twitter bio?
Oh,
you described.
Yeah, building the next Yeti, but better.
There you go.
Because, I mean, look, you're in Texas, you probably see a lot of the Yeti guys. They have a fantastic business. It's the best success story out of the D2C era, right? Like, fuck Warby Parker, fuck Allbirds. Like, those companies barely do any revenue. They're barely profitable. Yeti does billions of dollars a year. They turn a profit the entire time. They're the best business, right? Like, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you would have been like coolers, cups. Nobody wants that, right? But they've been able to really define a whole category. And now there's a whole drinkware industry that didn't really exist before them. So I think they're doing a fantastic job. But how could it be better? They're still very focused on wholesale. And if you listen to the earnings calls, they have literally no roadmap. They're just like, we're going to make a new color. Like, we're talking about $1 billion company that has all these resources, everything going on, huge manufacturing capability, and their big like selling point to investors is like, we're going to buy back stock and we have yellow coming out. And it's like, yeah. So I've publicly said this a couple of times. I think Yeti buys us for $1 billion in 2026. And if that happens, I'll buy a house next to you and we can hang out every day.
Yeah, man. I wanted to like breach into that vision that you have for Rich. Obviously, it sounds like acquisition is what you want to do, but is there like a bigger vision out there than just being in the material business?
Yeah, look, I often say we try to make the right decision in the moment every time, right? So like getting to this point took a lot of right decisions. In retrospect, the smarter thing to do would have been work at a gas station and buy Bitcoin. You know what I mean? In 2014, 2015, that would have been personally the best outcome. But obviously I didn't have the information you have now. So I made the right decision in the right time. And that was launching an agency, working with Ridge and everything, right? So I think Ridge is already $1 billion company. I think we can pair with like the infrastructure of somebody like a Yeti, and it makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of synergies there. They get new categories, and we have a big bear protecting us, right? I really look at like Mont Blanc as like the closest thing to what will be in the future, right? Mont Blanc is they're owned by a company called Richemont, which is like a South African luxury holding company. It's like there's LVMH, there's Keurig, and there's Richemont. They own Chloe and a bunch of other really cool brands. But, you know, Mont Blanc is like $500 million a year. They have a core flagship product, but they make a bunch of stuff in a bunch of different industries, but they're very like European heritage, right? And like there's a lot of things that come with that that's like, it feels stuck up. It feels fragile. It feels like all of these different things. So I think we can build the American version of that, right? Which is like you take American durability, right? Like this idea that like whatever Yeti's doing, whatever they stand for, taking that across, you know, more product lines. So that's kind of like what we're thinking. Or like Filson, right? I think Filson's an American heritage brand that does a really fucking awesome job. And like they're owned by like the guy who made Shinola. So like, you know, you could see where they're going. And I think we're trying to build something very similar. And that's like the short-term vision. That's what I think the next couple of years look like. But the flip side of that is we also make acquisitions, right? So like we bought another econ brand. We bought a website called everydaycarry.com, right? So if Yeti doesn't want to buy me for $1 billion, I think we're going to build our own little Richemont, our own little LVMH over here where we're making some acquisitions and building that up. And I'll try to make the right decision in the moment every time. That's what I'm focused on.
I think you buy Yeti rather than wait for them to buy you. Like the way you guys are going, you got to change that mindset around. I wanted to talk about, with this kind of rapid growth, how are you guys able to handle the inventory crunch and just cash flow of scaling up? And of course, the supply chain constraints that we've had the past 2 years.
I'm incredibly frugal. I think specifically in e-com, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but like if everyone's seen guys like this who will do a couple $1 million in sales and they buy a Lamborghini and like they think they're rich, but you basically don't make $100,000 a year running a business unless you get to fucking $10 million a year in revenue. It's so hard, you know what I mean, to actually find the capital to take that out. Especially we have 5 people on our cap table. None of us are especially reckless with our spending. So that's the first thing is like, I fucking live in an apartment. I'm the fucking CEO of a 9-figure business and I live in an apartment, right? So I think a lot of guys get caught up in the trap. And it's a lot of brand owners, right? You see all this money coming in, you have this massive business. If your business is $10 million a year, you do not make $10 million. I'll tell you that right now, but a lot of people think they do. So I think like frugality being throughout the business has really helped because we're still bootstrapped. We've never taken investment, right? Like we have a line of credit that we've never tapped, right? So we're able to cash flow this business and make these decisions. We're also extremely aggressive when it comes to supplier payment terms, right? Like I could get my COGS down by finding new vendors and paying up front and doing all these types of things, right? But I'd much rather carry huge balances with suppliers and pay them over slowly because it just really helps the whole machine function. So yeah, man, that's what it comes down to.
Is that normally 60 days, 90 days? What are your terms typically for paying?
Our dream terms are 0 deposits and paid in full after 4 months. That's like the dream terms we try to get to. So that requires a lot of relationship building, a lot of negotiating, and like the ability to place large orders can get us there. It's getting harder because, like I said, it's the end of the growth era. So banks in China are shutting down credit lines. It gets a lot harder to do business in China, and we're seeing that happen right now. But they also don't want to lose us as a client because they've built their business around us. So you got to go back and forth on that a little bit, but that's the dream payment terms. That's why we're able to grow and scale and do these investments, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So you're breaking even and you're not paying for the stuff you're selling for 3 to 4 months. And that's how you kind of make it work. Sweet, man. Where can people follow you? Where can they support your company? Where can they buy some wallets?
Yeah, you can go to Ridge.com, buy all the wallets you want. You can go to your local Nordstrom's or Scheels, and you can get Ridge wallets there. Soon to be Neiman Marcus and REI and Dick's, all the big wholesale places. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, Sean Ecom, and I'll talk to you about stuff.
There you go. Sean Frank, back on E-commerce Conversations, dropping nuggets. As always, I hope you guys learned as much as I did. This has been another E-commerce Conversations. Cheers. Keep on growing.
Thanks for having me.